By Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on another fantastic day on Talk Today as we get a chance to fellowship, to live, laugh, learn, and to invite you to show the love. Starting off with an opportunity to talk about our National Heroes Day. At 12:45, we get to celebrate a month of our elderly. And then at 1:30, Mental Health Week with our friends over at HSA. So please, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Please be mindful that even though the nominations close very, very imminently, we want you to realize you have a lot of time still, but don't let it pass, because as we celebrate National Heroes Day come next year, we want to make sure that all who are deserving have been considered. Well, in the studio, we have two fine gentlemen who serve as the knights to the Queen who's assembled with us. Ms. Karen Nixon, good afternoon to you, Mom, and welcome. Thanks so much for coming on board.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
I know, as we asked Mr. Watson and a good friend here, who, Mr. Charlton, sometimes you look at him and you realize that he just exudes that confidence, but that charisma and charm. But Ms. Carey, could we, through you, just start first with a discussion? I think oftentimes we don't see, nor celebrate, nor recognize, nor respect those within our communities. But help us to be more appreciative.
Well, today we're here to speak about our National Heroes Day next year. And as a committee member, I'm really happy to be a part of this and to be here with us doing our bit today. The theme for January is honoring our uniformed services. And first off, I just want everybody to know that the date for final applications coming in is fast approaching.
The Saturday is,
It's the 16th, and we're just hoping that please don't think that someone else will do it. If you know of someone who has served your country in these various positions, please just nominate them. It's very easy, and the specific entities that we represent under the theme for this year are the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, including the Special Constabulary, Cayman Islands Fire Services, Customs and Border Controls, including Immigration and Customs Legacy Officers, Her Majesty's Prisons, Cayman Islands Cadets, Cayman Islands Coast Guard, and the Regiment. The nomination forms can be found on celebratecayman.ky, or paper ones can be picked up in the Government Admin Building in Grand Cayman and in the District Admin Building in Cayman Brac. Please, please get those applications coming in, because we don't want someone to miss out just because we thought someone else was doing it. It doesn't matter if we receive 10 applications for the same person. It shows that someone remembered someone.
Yeah. I think that's the important thing. Lest we forget, we're reminded at times. Mr. Watson, when we look at the Cayman context and the unfolding landscape, it's indicative that we're going to get to a space where our people start to show more deference publicly. And as we celebrate National Heroes Day, focusing on the uniformed services in particular gives us a chance to recognize that many serve and have served and will continue, but it's good for them to be appreciated publicly.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me here today. As Ms. Carey said, this is a wonderful opportunity in Cayman to celebrate all of those men and women who go out every single day to protect us, whether it's from fire, in the police service and Coast Guard, and there are so many people that spend their lives dedicated to serving their community, and the fact they wear a uniform is an easy way to identify them and a fantastic way to celebrate them. And we've had people in uniform for decades. And the good thing about Heroes Day next year is it recognises all of those people who have served, who have put their lives sometimes on the line to serve Cayman. And I think that's really, really important. And as a member of the Uniformed Services, and I have been in the military in the UK before, it is a special calling. And I think that those men and women, they don't do it necessarily for the money.
That's for sure.
That is true.
And that is not a dig at the government whatsoever. But we recognise that you go into service, in uniform service, because it's the important thing to do. You want to serve Cayman, you want to serve your community, and you want to stand up for what is right. And I think that we should really recognise all of those people who've done this over the years and be incredibly grateful of the fantastic uniform services that we have in Cayman.
Indeed.
So, and I would just say, as Ms. Carey said, it's really important that you don't just assume that somebody you know and you respect is going to be nominated. So please go to www.celebratecayman.ky. And it's a really simple form. You can fill it in, or you can pick up paper copies, as Ms. Carey said. But please, this Saturday is the last opportunity to do this. So let's really think about the people that you've known for decades and that you've respected and you want to say thank you to.
Indeed. Mr. Charlton, I mean, we look at the formation of the Coast Guard, even with the Marine unit as predecessor, but way back when, fire control. Those of us would go to venture at sea, not because you probably had the best radio with the highest antenna, but we would call that, and that sort of presence gave us a sense of security of mind for many, not just those on the boat, but those at home, knowing that there was somebody in contact. But we see the operation on land, and as Simon referenced, whether it's a burning building or a cat up the tree, you guys responded in a way that not just commanded respect, but exuded a sense of respect for the community and called us to want to serve. So kudos to you as well, man.
Thank you much for that, and thanks for having me today. Just to touch on some of what Simon said as well, it's a privilege to serve our community. And I mean, a lot of our guys in our department, when you think of rewarding them with any recognition or anything, they look at it as just another day at the office, pretty much. And, no matter the conditions, these guys are always willing, able, and ready to do whatever calling is there. Like you said, from a cat in a tree to, whatever the call is, they're always ready to respond and take it with great pride in doing so. So, yeah, it's an honor to be looked at in this aspect. But I'm quite sure if you spoke to a number of the guys right now and you tell them try to think of some storylines in the past that you've been through and try to get out nominate, they'll say, well, it was just another day at the office. So that makes it difficult in our department. And so, and like I said, we've encouraged them that Saturday is the deadline. We've spoken to a number of individuals and saying, if you can think of anything in the past that you've done that you think warrants, somebody being recognized, please do so. In our department, we look at it all the time, and our biggest reward is the community itself. When we go out and help somebody, no matter how small a job it may be, and just a simple thank you, that's the biggest reward any uniform service can get. Yeah. And so, that is a plus for us.
Right. Ms. Carey, if I may, because, as you were sharing that phrase, that reference, or just another day at the job, this is what is done day in and day out, because it's just part and parcel of that calling. But for them, it's another day. But I think for us, we need to not take it for granted and be more willing to remember that. There are instances that have come to mind where, fire control, for instance, fire rescue have come out. It wasn't a fire at a burning building, but the equipment, the resources, their responsiveness, because of where they were positioned, made it that much more accessible, and appreciated. So we now need to think about it and not just how those things pass into memory.
Yes, certainly. And as Rick said, it's just another day at the office, but not for us being there, then there could have been some serious consequences. Mm-hmm. And our immigration, going way back when I first joined, we were under the police, and we eventually transitioned into our own. And John Bostock came to Cayman in the early 70s, and he was the first official chief immigration officer. Mm-hmm. And it was a pleasure working under people like that who taught us a lot and who had the community at heart and did our best to keep our community safe. Mm-hmm. And from people, illegal entries, people working without work permits, et cetera, et cetera. So we covered everything in those early days.
Sometimes with a phone call.
Didn't have cell phones either.
But that speaks to where I think, Simon, where we are now, knowing the community and having more of us drawn to uniform services. As that, it isn't pay; it's the ability and the willingness to contribute
to your community,
and hopefully that'll bring us closer.
Absolutely, and I think we see this across Cayman in people volunteering to help charities and to help each other and just to look after a next door neighbour. And we see that the whole time. We're very fortunate with the Cayman Islands Regiment that we're able to take people who really want to give back and form that into some sort of disciplined organisation to allow them to be able to do that, and then train them and equip them so they can help their community. And we in the same way that the special constabulary are set up, these are the men and women in the regiment are normal day-to-day people, and then when they're called, they put on their uniform and they come to help. Mm-hmm. And one of the privileges we have is that a lot of the work we do is in support of our full-time emergency services, so in support of fire, in support of prisons, in support of Coast Guard, and that's great from our point of view, because we get to work with the people that do this day in, day out.
I think this is part of where we build resilience within the community. I mean, I'm without question have a perspective on it, but the more of us that are skilled in understanding the ownership. The premise of the Neighborhood Crime Watch is that you know your neighbors. It's not unlike, the group of people who've come together to look after a particular segment of the animal population, or the horticulturists and hobbyists, when it comes to gardening.
That's one of the important things for us now as we make this transition in our department is our partnerships that we work in with the regiment, police, Coast Guard, uniform Coast Guard, and everything else. And it makes life so much easier when you're dealing with the community, because back in the day when it was only like the fire service or the police you would call or whatever the case is. Now we got so many more entities that we can rely on, which makes the job a whole lot easier. Everybody has a role to play, and everybody's on the same page makes life so much easier. And it's getting out in the public as well, like Simon said, that puts people's mind at ease. You're always hearing different stories and stuff like that, but when people see you out in the public, they realize, so much you've heard over the years about the fire service, now the regiment's on board, now you're hearing the Coast Guard, so everybody's out there and we're all selling our product, and that's a good thing about making the community realizing that we are here to serve you, we are here to help you whenever you're in need. Right. So.
Absolutely. I mean, we are a small community in Cayman. We don't have a lot of resources, so it's really important that we all work together to support the community. And as Roy says, it is us all working together that delivers that product to the community. And it's an honour. It's an absolute honour.
All hands on deck. Well, after this short break, let's share in the remaining minutes. Hopefully, people will be encouraged and understand the importance of making our nominations. Please join us right after the break. Stay tuned.
a caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The Department of Commerce and Investment is asking clients to use their online services at www.dci.gov.ky for trade and business amendments, grant and renewal applications, and more. While the DCI counters remain open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, you can stay safe, avoid the line, and save time by applying online for business services at dci.gov.ky. For questions about the DCI's online service or other licensing, enforcement, or regulatory matters, please email info@dci.gov.ky.
Choose informal times to talk to your child about alcohol. Having frequent talks with your child in a safe environment will show that you care and encourage a more open and honest dialogue about the risks of underage drinking. For tips, log on to www.ndc.ky. This message was brought to you by the National Drug Council and Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us. Remember, the nominations, as Ms. Karen Nixon reminds us, closes on this Saturday. It's not like a bank now. It doesn't roll till Monday. Saturday, it closes. So please don't assume that somebody has already nominated that person, and if they have, hey, so much the better. Joining Ms. Carey is the good company of, as you can see on either side, the handsome presence of Mr. Watson, Mr. Charlton. You should have saw her when she arrived in the studio, just fitting of a queen. Ms. Carey, we have the highest love and respect for you. So.
Thank you.
With this, though, I think people need to appreciate it. Sometimes it just takes a few minutes, but sometimes they need to put a little bit more extra thought. But don't let the opportunity pass.
Don't let it pass, please. And just please don't think that someone else is doing it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Because we'd hate to know that the deadline passes and then someone comes in and says, oh, I just remembered so-and-so. We just want to make sure that those people whose backs and footsteps that we're walking in, whose backs we climbed on, are the ones that get recognized.
Right.
And please don't forget them.
Whether they're served, as you said, in any of the uniform services over the years. I think back to Mr. Walsh and Conley, for instance.
Exactly.
I can still see that long Lanka frame just moving and
my father-in-law, Mr. Carl Nixon, was a police officer, and I had the honor when I joined of working with people like great women like Mrs. Sharon McCoy, Mrs. Georgette Myrie, people like that who really set the pace for us young ones when we came in. And I'd just like to take a moment and just extend our condolences to Alexis Nunes' family. Alexis was a part of us in the early days, and it's sad that she's no longer with us. So I'd just like to extend our condolences to Jennison and the family. And just remember the good times that we had together. That's what I had to go on Sunday when I got the news.
Thank you for always a lady. And I think with that, let us not forget those that may have passed. Or whether it's just recently or whether it's been decades ago. They still serve, they still deserve.
Exactly.
And there's still space for them.
Yes.
What's the chance? To me, the fire truck is appealing to the young boy and the girl as well. From the days at school to just, watching it move through the community, the shine and the glimmer. But there's a thing to being a part of the uniform. So, what would you say to not just your colleagues who are thinking about their predecessors, but even others in the community, that invitation to make the nomination?
Like I said, Dwayne, it's thinking about the storylines. I'm quite sure there are a number of people in the community who, at some point in time, has either, come into some hardship that a uniform services has stepped up and assisted that individual or helped that individual that stands out in your mind. I mean, Ivan was a prime example of that. Back in the day, we had a number of things going on at the same time, and fire service was out there along with police and everybody else. And there's always those small little stories that at some point in time somebody has assisted or came to your aid or whatever the case that you think is worth that recognition. And I'll encourage everybody. I mean, like Ms. Curry spoke about, when I first came into the service in 1987, I mean, I was under the leadership then of Mr. Kirkland Nixon. Everybody who knew Mr. Kirkland knew that when he spoke, you stood at attention and you were, you paid attention. And then, through that time back in those days, we had really great officers. We still have great officers. We have great officers in the making now. But, you were on a tutelage where you had that wisdom. You had like Mr. Nixon, you had Mr. Grant, Mr. Billy Ray Martinez, Mr. Steve Porter, who's has passed on, Mr. John Evans, Senior, who's passed on. These are the folks who really set the precedents back then that really taught us, and in my group, the things about life in general, not only just dealing with fire service, but they were role models to us to an extent that led us on this path to take on this thing as not just a job, but a career, and a long-standing career. And that's one of the things I want to encourage a lot of people, young people, even to come out into the communities now and looking to join. This is not just a job. This is something that's the long term. This is it. You're in for the long haul, and the recognition, like I said, that's there. But it's the fact that your enjoyment from this will be that you're giving back to your community and serving your community.
I mean, we had the deputy governor came through the ranks he came on as a student. So when he was in school, he was still coming in and that's where he started out. And he went through all the ranks. He became the chief immigration officer and then moved on. He's now the deputy governor, Mr. Franz Manderson, Mr. Art Connor. So it's a lot of people have moved through the ranks, and there's a lot of good officers who are still there. So we need to remember all those who served in the early days and right up until today.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that, because Simon, as I'm listening, perhaps for many of us, who are probably not as exposed, with other jurisdictions, larger jurisdictions where uniform service is so evident and their presence are just so obvious. It takes a while for us to appreciate it in absence of maybe police, prison, immigration. We don't see it. But I like what you said earlier, that as more people come to understand the interactions of one branch with the other, we not only gain the respect but the value, but we also see how we can contribute to that partnership. So maybe this is the time.
Absolutely, and I think there's some fantastic careers available in uniform services across the board. We have some amazing uniform services in Cayman, and there are opportunities, whether it's full time, as Roy was saying, and moving through the ranks, as Ms. Carey was talking about, or if it's something that you say, well, look, I really want to support, but I have another job and I don't want necessarily to leave that. Then look at the police special constables, look at the Cayman Islands Regiment, and have that opportunity to be part of the uniform services, but in your own spare time as well.
Indeed. Well, I'm very grateful that each of you take so much time out of your day, because I know it's not without significant cost, but it's important. And as you shared, maybe we as a populace would start to appreciate that a few minutes of our time to enter a nomination, whether online or we do it on a hard copy, just get it in by Saturday, right, Ms. Carey?
Yes.
Simon?
Yeah, 100%. And I think if we look back through the years, all of the things that those people in uniform services have done, then a few minutes of your time to fill in that form is not a lot to ask.
Not a lot.
And before Saturday.
Saturday. And just going way back, the early pioneers right up until today.
Right. I was going to ask you if you could, because even the memorial scroll, but there's those categories, for those individuals. If you have it handy, Mr. Shelton, do you have it? So you got the memorial scroll for those who have gone on.
We have the early pioneers. And we have, this year, I think they've done one that is also for people who've, in bravery, in the acts of bravery, so that we can think back.
Yeah, Simon?
Absolutely. We have Pioneer.
Yes.
We have Emerging Pioneer. We have Excellence and Valor. We have Memorial Scroll. And they're all covered in the website. So all the information for that is on www.celebratekman.ky.
Yeah.
And I think just to touch on that too, in the event that anybody has any or wants any additional information, it has any nhd@gov.ky or call 244-2426 for additional information.
All right, well, today is Tuesday, right? And if you blink, it'll be next Tuesday.
Yeah.
It happens. I mean, I had hair yesterday. It goes in the blink of an eye. Sorry. I'm hopeful that people would, because we have many who are deserving, who serve, and it wasn't the pay that called them to these positions. It was, that need to see the country grow. So
and the passion as well.
And the passion. I can still see it when I look around and you speak to Mr. Nixon. I remember the days he'd come up to the 4th floor and he would talk and you listen. A gentle giant with a commanding spirit, with such an endearing personality. So these are the people that epitomize service. So Watson, to you, thanks very much for your leadership. We I always learn more and I always feel enamored when we grow together, man.
It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
McLean, thank you much, Ms. Carey.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. And Mr. Charlton, as the brother of Yvette, always a good big brother, man.
Thanks much for having me. And like I said, they just want to encourage everybody to get their nominations in before Saturday deadline.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to sit back and say, well, I wish I had done this and I wish I had done that. It's too late then. So, of all the things that you can think of, all the people that have come somewhere along your line in the uniform services and the touch your line. And don't forget our cadets. They're part of all of this too from the young one. And this is the training that brings them into it, that makes them see that passion and want to continue into a different uniform when they leave the cadets and stuff like that. So, just encourage everybody to get out and send your nomination in before Saturday.
Thank you very much. And hopefully through you, people will realize how important it is and they will, enter their nominations. Right now, I like to see a lot. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Well, we're going to pause and take a break. When we come back, we get a chance to celebrate our elderly. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Hurricane season is here. If you're not prepared, it can really turn your life upside down. Fortunately, there's CG Britk. Our people are here ready to assist at a moment's notice, with protection like alternative accommodation for those who are displaced due to a storm, and coverage for the cost of clearing debris, hiring surveyors, architects, and more. It's our priority to make sure you have what you need when you need it most. So when your life gets turned upside down, we can help to turn it around. CG Britk. Good like that.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Good and cleaner.
From now on until October 30th, take advantage of our 12% discount on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays on all ladies and gents wearing apparels on orders $18 and up, except on wedding dresses and evening gowns, which will remain at the standard price at 10% off prepay. Offer valid at all 3 locations: Savannah Countryside 946-1884, Elgin Avenue 949-2452, and Eastern Avenue Drive-Thru, rain or shine, 949-7104. Puritan Cleaners, you feel good when you know you look good.
COVID-19 vaccines are the only way forward in reopening our borders safely. Take the COVID-19 vaccine to protect yourself and the ones you love, especially those of us who cannot get vaccinated. For more information on the COVID-19 vaccine, Visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Uflex Season of Joy continues this week. Show 818 is all about making a joyful noise.
First in the hot seat will be Mrs. Cassandra Ebanks Powery from the Northside Wesleyan Holiness Church, who will be telling us about their upcoming youth convention.
Sound interesting? Join us for the lowdown on when, where, and what you can expect.
And returning for the second consecutive show is local artist Erica Asai, who will be discussing what's next for her and her musical aspirations over the coming month.
So I can show you this cold case, la la la, so we can relate on some higher stuff.
Uflex, a program for all people by young people.
Joyful noises abound this Wednesday from 4 to 5 here on Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
That's right, 1 full hour of noise. As usual, you can watch us live on YouTube or join the conversation by calling our toll-free line. We look forward to chatting with you. Call in and tell us what a joyful noise is to you, or you can just say hi. Uflex, more than talk.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thank you so much for joining us. And I'm so grateful that we live in a society that has so much deference for its elderly and continue to show it. And for a country through official sources and its government programming to dedicate a month to celebrate our elderly. And I'm honored to have in the studio and by phone as well some of the stalwarts in our community as we celebrate, this, what I think, auspicious occasion within our society. We have in the studio joining Ms. Cassandra Farron from the Department of Children and Family Services, so the manager of the Elder Service Unit. We have Ms. Alice May Cole and Mr. Adele Ramon, and then online, hopefully to be joined by a few, including from the BRAC, Mr. George Walton. But if I could, before I ask Ms. Alice May and Mr. Dale to sort of give us a little brief intro themselves. Cassandra, could I, through you, maybe set the stage for a discussion? I think I look at how we, for our parents, but even just the general population, we have this endearing spirit towards the elderly. We're drawn by their life experiences. We're sort of hopeful to get into a space where they feel that they have earned the right to share their perspective. As the comedians say, what, at this age, I can drive and keep my indicator on and not turn, because we are providing a safe, nurturing place, but showing them that love and respect. Hopefully, God's will, and one day we'll get to that space and be equally deserving. So, thank you to you and your team for all the good work all these many years.
Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Thank you for having us here. Again, yes, we are happy to be here to discuss Older Persons Month. Every October, the Department of Children and Family Services celebrates Older Persons Month, and we're so happy to do it. We know that there's a lot of other causes going on in the month of October that equally deserve our attention, but we have been celebrating Older Persons Month since 1995. And within each Older Persons Month, we choose every year the Older Persons Month ambassadors. So that's what we're here to do today, to introduce our 2021 Older Persons Month ambassadors. And we feel that the ambassador is really a true representation of somebody that's actively aging within our community. So we're very happy to be able to present them and to highlight them throughout this month. So this year we chose 5 Older Persons Month ambassadors, and they were chosen within Department of Children and Family Services and within the Older Persons Month Planning Committee. The 5 persons were selected for their significant community service records and for their continuing contributions locally within the Cayman Islands. All 5 have, worked and contributed to district causes, to churches, to charities, and to individuals. And we believe that ambassadors also signify the purposeful roles that older Caymanians still have in our community, those that are still actively contributing to the community, and they inspire us. They are deserving of our respect, and they're deserving of our gratitude for sure. So we always look forward to having them take part in Older Persons Month. So we look at it as a platform as well, that these ambassadors can share aspects of their lives, hopefully to inspire other persons, young and old in the community, to continue to help and to care for older persons. But we also ask them to be able to highlight any particular social issue that they feel is impacting the older person community, so that we can bring some awareness to it. And those are some of the aims as well of Older Persons Month. Yes, we want to celebrate, and have various fun activities for all older persons to be able to take part in, and some intergenerational activities as well, because we know that helps to prevent ageism. But we want to have older persons, be able to talk about things that are affecting them.
Indeed.
So we're here today to introduce them. This is the first time for the month that we've done so. So I will let them introduce themselves.
Thank you very much. I can only think that looking at these fine young people, to say that they're elderly, I don't know. But Miss Alice May, if we could through you, and before we join the others on the phones, maybe start with the studio. If you would, into whatever extent, Miss Alice May, you want to, maybe just a quick little intro. My thoughts are, we'll get a little brief intro from each one. We'll do the news break, and then at 1 to 1:30, we'll get into some of the questions, in particular those social issues, if you wish. I know you're no stranger to activism, no stranger to community service, but draw close to the mic, Miss Alice May, and sing as if you're in a choir.
Then you had to close your radio station down if I start singing.
We'll close the rest of them down, yeah. We know that.
Well, older persons, we consider ourselves growing up. I mean, I will proudly say that my next birthday in January, I will be 76. So I'm still growing up, and I thank God for health to continue. Well, I'm Alice May Coe. Everybody calls me Alice May, but believe it or not, there's another name before that. Sarah Alice May Coe. So now you see it coming on in the government communication under Sarah. And naturally, I'm from West Bay, and I've been chosen, and I feel honoured to have been, nominated and chosen as an ambassador for Older Persons Month. I am the deputy chair of the Older Persons Council, and we work with Department of Children and Family Services. They've got an elderly unit, so we are all aiming for the same goal, for advancing the well-being of older persons.
Amen. And Mr. Dale Ramon, before we join the others online, let's talk to you, because something you said at the outset, I normally try to avoid talking out of school, at least consciously. But you said, we stay active, we play sports and the like. And in that, I'm reminded that it isn't that you are getting older, it's almost as if you're getting younger, because the rest of us are growing up now, we feel closer in age. But I would be mindful not to go in the ring with you, not to put you in goal and try to score against you. You still look the same, sir.
Thank you, Sterling, for that. It's a pleasure for me to be here. It's when I was asked about this, it's a assignment, I must say, because I say, what can I say? How can I represent the older folks? Those who have been here before me have made so much valuable contribution to me. How can I represent these people, these persons? And it's an honor, like Miss Alice says, it's an honor for me to be here and to represent, being chosen as an ambassador to represent the older people of not only Georgetown, but the wider Cayman Islands as a whole, And I can now fill the shoes of some, or half the shoes that some of those people have, done before me. So I'll do my best I can, the best I can,
Well, the torch has been passed to you, and as you take the mantle, I think we will see that will come after how important it is to carry that. Let's go to the phones. Maybe first welcome Mr. Walton. Hey, good afternoon, sir. Thank you. And we know you've been on hold for the last 5 days. This is the respect that they have for time, sir. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
I'm doing fine.
All right. And for those who are listening, I know you joined us in the BRAC. Would you be okay with us asking you to share as you wish? You heard Mr. Dale share and Ms. Alice May. Share as you wish, sir.
Yes. Me and my wife, Lynn Walton.
Mm.
I am very, very honored to be, in light of all the other Caymanians who have contributed to our society and to older persons in particular, I am greatly honored to have been chosen. It is also a privilege and it's also provocative. At my age, at 83, being chosen as an ambassador has provoked me to look at where I am in this life cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And it has given me an opportunity to examine my own aging process, mortality, age 83 years old.
Also an opportunity to share experiences with other older people.
Yes, well. I think, Ms. Lynn, I think that is the thing that we need. I heard it in Mr. Ramon's comments. You are not only examples to us, but maybe inspirational to your contemporaries who are looking at this and thinking, well, age isn't this thing that should preclude. In fact, it should be the invitation to evoke within you a new phase in life, right, Ms. Lynn?
I'm sorry, but could you repeat it a little bit? You were a little unclear.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. That might be the SBA. Let me try. No, I was saying that in what you were sharing, it would not only serve as an example for the rest of us, but for your own, age bracket, the other elderly within your community, that they too are living a deserving life, that they too have a lot more years and a lot more that they can sort of gain and garner, but also enjoy.
Absolutely, and being an older person, there's a large community of us, and it ranges from 60 to into the 90s, and sometimes beyond that. The needs change also.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you can't compare a 13-year-old to a 19-year-old, although they're both ages.
Mm-hmm.
And Sterling, if I could add as well, in regards to what Miss Lynn was talking about, them being an inspiration and being able to share with their peers. This year is a little different because normally every older person's month, we have these large events and we have older persons attending from all districts together. This year, unfortunately, is a little bit more understated because of the COVID restrictions, but that was a main part of it where older persons from all around can come and see persons that they hadn't seen, be able to, have that social time with each other and be able just to talk about some of the things that they are doing now within their lives, things that they can highlight to be able to help others that are going through some of their similar experiences.
Indeed. And as we go to the break, Mr. Denniston, when we return, sir, could we start with you, maybe a brief intro, but also ask the first the series of questions, or what does being chosen as an ambassador for this month, mean to you? And then we'll continue the discussion. We ask all who are listening to stay tuned, because I think this is where we show the appreciation, but also how we learn and value who we are. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. We go straight now to Radio Cayman's Shanda Gallego for the latest on a search for a missing man.
I'm located on the Coast Guard base as efforts are underway at this hour to locate a man who fell aboard a vessel in the North Sound Monday night. Not much details at this time, but what we do know, 911 got word Monday evening around 7:20 p.m. that a man was missing from the party boat he had been on, presumably having fallen off somewhere between Starfish Point and Governor Sound. The search was called off Monday night and resumed at 6 a.m. this morning. An extensive search continues with the units from the Cayman Islands Coast Guard, as well as RCIPS ground and air units and the Cayman Islands Fire Service, searching the North Sound base on information on where the man was last seen. A number of private vessels have joined the search. It is still a search and rescue operation, and it is being coordinated on Marine VHF Channel 24. Vessels wishing to assist should get in touch with the Coast Guard Operations and Rescue Coordination Center on either VHF 24 or at 649-6722. For Radio Cayman News at the Cayman Islands Coast Guard Headquarters, I'm Shanda Gallego.
Thank you, Shanda. Stay with Radio Cayman as we follow the story throughout the day and on our news at 6 p.m. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thank you so much for joining us. And thanks, too, for the opportunity to sit here at times and hopefully through this, what I think, a wonderful gifting to learn, but also to open avenues for a discussion as we celebrate, the month of our elderly. Ms. Cassandra Ferrum from the DCFS joins us. We have the 5 ambassadors. Sarah Alice Mako. There we go. They're starting to do the banks. Well, they can go. And, probably one of the best goalkeepers, at least from Georgetown anyway. Cliff would probably disagree with that, but Mr. Dale Ramon.
And Curtis.
I won't even mention Curtis. And on the phone is Mr. Denison Tibbetts together with Mr. and Mrs. George Walton, Mr. George and Miss Lynn. Mr. Denison, as we were going through the break, sir, we were asking you for, when we come back, for 2 things. One, just a brief intro of yourself, but also if you would set the stage for our next discussion by answering the question, what is being chosen as an ambassador for this month, mean to you, how does it resonate, and what do you want to maybe achieve through this title?
Well, I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, sir.
You probably left me out for the last because I'm the farthest away. I'm all the way in Miami.
Well, we figured it would take a while for your voice to get here, you see.
Well, most people know me. I'm Denison Tibbetts. I'm the president of the Seafarers Association, have been for the last 3.5 years. And I'm one of those Tibbetts boys from the Brack, so, big up the Brack. Mr. and Mrs. Walton, it has been well, first of all, it was kind of a shock to me that Cassandra called me and they were going to nominate me, but having been nominated and accepted, I'm very pleased, honored, and it's really one of the highlights of my career.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout my entire life, from I lived in Jamaica where I went to school, I have always been community minded, and over the years, with Lions and various organizations in Grand Cayman, I have always tried to help the older person. And being an older person myself, although I'm not quite Mr. Walton's age, but I hope to reach there one day. But it's certainly a privilege and an honor for me to have been chosen as one of the Grand Cayman ambassadors. As a matter of fact, my only sister, who is older than I am, she was the representative in the BRAC some years ago, so I know a little bit about it. But it's certainly a new experience for me, and for those of you who know me, Sterling, you know me. I've been on the radio many times talking about seafarers and
mm-hmm.
And that's my main goal in life, is to help people my age and older, or even younger. But once you reach the status, or as the old people say, the August years of your life, one has to be thankful that we've lived this long, you know. And
Amen. Yeah.
the easier thing, maybe I'm talking out of turn, but the digital age has caught up with us, so we need to get the older people involved.
Indeed.
But it's certainly a privilege for me to be among such dignitaries, I would call it. Dale is my friend, Miss Alice May, and Mr. and Mrs. Walton.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate
Very glad to be here.
Very much glad to have you here. And Mr. Walton, perhaps you and your wife, I know the wife would be so kind as well, as Mr. Denson set the stage. Receiving this nomination, especially on the back where we see the relatively, a strong community still being, celebrated and reminding us of what is Cayman. What does this mean to you, being chosen as an ambassador, to you, sir, and then to Miss Lynn?
It gives me an opportunity to share my experience and support with other older people. I find that it is very enriching to not only share my experience with the older people, but with the older people sharing their experience with me. And indeed, we have a rich culture here. It's incredible how we have survived in older times in such austere conditions. But we survived, and we did well, and we passed it on. And if I can take the liberty to say, I came from a very poor family. We worked, we had land and cows and goats and pigs, but we never had a lot of liquid capital. But from that background, at 14 years old, I was able to go to the United States, to the University of Tennessee, and I paid my way there by selling fish, and I paid my tuition by cutting grass and I never stole, I never begged, and no one, didn't have the Cayman Islands government was not in a position financially as they are now to send people away on scholarships. So, but thank God, I was able to go to the University of Tennessee, and I got my associate degree in medical dental technology, Westchester Community College in Westchester, New York. I was able to go to this downstate, the State University of New York, and get my science. I was able to get into the United States Air Force as a first lieutenant. I was able to spend 20 years there. I was able to get my master's degree in Germany in counseling psychology. And the little background, I think the value system that this Cayman Islands are enriched with things that make even the average person like me survive in a greater environment. And I'm so thankful and that I came out of this environment, and this is an opportunity for me to share with the older people and to support them in any way that I can.
Amen. Listening to you just remind me of the values of us. Miss Lynn, I don't want to take away from that. Would you be mindful, if you wish to share with us as well, what this, being selected as ambassador, what does that mean to you?
Yes, it certainly is a privilege. Born in New York, and 53 years ago, I married George and came here to the Cayman Islands, which I fell in love with even before I was here.
Mm-hmm.
Are so very special here, and I don't even think Caymanians realize how special they are. And it is such a privilege to be here. I'm a nurse. I've been here for a long time. I also help teach part-time, teach children who are having difficulty with reading and spelling from Spot Bay Elementary School for a while, and other things. Read stories. I collected a bunch of stories from George that he told me over the years, experiences as a young boy. Filed them, and I read some of them to the community care center who could relate to them. Having them talk back to me, to have the privilege of listening to them, I think it is so important, young people, to listen to the stories, to the life stories of the older people. A lot of times, I wish I asked my grandmother this, but my grandmother's no longer here. Get the younger people involved in listening to older people. It will do two things. Bring a lot of joy to the old people to know that they're valued and they want to be listened to. And it also brings the knowledge to the younger person. Well,
I think one of the problems that we are maybe running into now, older people or the younger people don't listen as much to the older people, and they believe that it is more valuable to recreate the wheel. They don't listen, so they go and try to recreate the wheel that has already been made. And this is one of our jobs, as long as I live, to see if we can reverse that trend. It's not only good for the young people, but it's also good for those of us who are retired and not as active as they used to be. One of the things I would like to say, it is nothing as tragic as a person living their whole life to old age and never having anyone to listen to them without having any predetermined way that they should be, but listen to them with respect and thank them for their contributions.
Yes, sir.
I think it's the most tragic thing to die and never have somebody listen to you and hear the way your life was. And
yeah, I mean, as you said, I'm thinking of Mr. Alan Martin's song, about the old sea captain. But Ms. Alice May, we still have within our community that opportunity, but as Mr. George shared, maybe we're not cognizant of the essential sort of approach to ensure that we listen to our young people, and as Ms. Lynn was referencing, maybe the values, maybe the specialness that is us, we have ignored it, been fooled in believing that it isn't of any significance.
It's a two-way street. Listening to each other, no matter your age. And I know younger people tend to feel that we are so old that we don't understand what's going on and they know better. And that's not something just happening today. This is generation after generation. The older people felt the young people don't know anything. They haven't got the experience, and the young people would feel the old people are too old and they don't understand how things go. It's a two-way street. And the respect and understanding and listening to each other is most important. Most important. Intergenerational relationships.
Right.
And I think they mentioned about nobody to listen to you. I think one of the many things that affect older persons is loneliness. But because they're not listened to, and the family has no time for them because they're busy working to put food on the table, and they're left to their own devices, and loneliness can make you so depressed that it affects your health. And that's why it is important to communication. Thankfully, they have technology and they're learning how to use all of that. But families should visit each other frequently. Don't let a day pass that you haven't been in contact with your older ones. Okay?
All right. With that, Mr. Ramon, I think back to something you shared earlier, and maybe could ask you, sort of weave a couple of the questions into play, because you alluded to it in relation to it. Certainly share with us, being in the bath as you referenced earlier, but also picked up on Miss Alice May's point. there are issues. Miss Lynn referenced the need to read and help with the younger ones, for instance, and pass on the skill sets they have. But what are some of the very, very pressing social issues right now that the older people, their families are facing, that maybe we are, as a community, are not necessarily paying sufficient attention to or even have ignored? So as you speak to all those, weave them together for me, sir, as only Mr. Ramon can do.
Thank you, Sir. But before I say anything, let me say hi to Denston. Denston, it's good to hear your voice. I heard you was a bit unhealthy for some time now, but it's good to hear your voice, and I hope you're making good progress. All right, so, yes, based on what...
Actually, Dale, thank you very much, but it's not me, it's my brother. I'm up here with my brother.
Oh, I thought it was you. I thought it was you, Denson. I know. Nevertheless, it applies to you. Well, you know the Tibbetts always you, Kurt, and the bunch of you guys are always my good buddies. So, nevertheless, if it's not you, it applies to your brother likewise. So, okay?
Very good. Thank you very much.
No problem, brother. And yes, based on what Miss Allison did, let's say there, it's very important that most of my learning, understanding of all this, I've listened to the older seamen, the older folks of our community, and hear their stories and try to apply them the best I could to try to see others live better with each other and so forth. And over the years, I think I did well. Thank God for that, So I'm not going to complain because at my age right now, and I'm not as old as the gentleman and Miss Alice there, but I'm getting there, and it's all about listening, learning from the older folks that I've had experience with and what they have been through. And one of my greatest joy is to read about the biography of great people. No disrespect to color or creed, but black men especially over the years. So I've learned a lot from listening, reading, and learning, and coming in contact with many good people of our community, older folks of our community, and to hear how they have contributed to our society, to the Cayman Islands as a whole. It makes me proud in many ways to be a part of this community. And the new technology is coming to place now. It's good because what it can do for the older folks in their homes who, like Michelle say, have not had the privilege of youngsters visiting them and so forth, they can communicate. Once they learn the techniques of how to answer a phone and to apply themselves and to make contact with their old friends, to communicate and to find out who each other's go, which some of the older folks are doing right now. They're not up to par with the new iPhone and so forth, like some of the, but they got their little phone that they can make contact with their friends and find out how their friends are doing and so forth. So all those things is good nowadays. But my greatest joy is to know that we love and care and respect each other.
Amen.
And remember those before us who have contributed significantly. So that's my joy.
I think too, as I listen to him, I'm seeing how we're leveraging technology and increasingly the expenses have increased in our homes. Just for instance, if we want a good internet service in our elderly, maybe that's something that we have now added to their recurrent budget every month so that they can stay in contact with friends and family here, but across the globe. Mr. George, if we could maybe come to you and speak from the perspective of not just your service in the Air Force, being stationed in Germany, but your return to the BRAC together with Miss Lynn. What are some of those things that maybe you've garnered from your experience and expertise, but also from living, growing up, and in the States in the early days, but seeing what's happening in the BRAC that maybe here in the Cayman Islands that we are probably ignoring or not paying sufficient attention to as the social issues that the elderly and their families may be facing?
Well, one of the things, if I may, that the older people are dealing here is with retirement. Like people like me who went from one end of the earth to the other. Here, retirement. I have no job. I have come to the end of that, and then thank God I still have my spouse, and thank God I have some heart problems, but no terminal illness. And but my family, I have basically a openness syndrome. You know, most of my birds, emptiness syndrome, I meant to say. Most of my birds have flown away, and they sometimes are perceived as being useless at this. So these are some of the things that I have to. But in Germany, I noticed while I was there that a lot of care is paid to the old people. Take, for instance, like all the old people, instead of staying in the nursing homes, are encouraged to go to the pool every day. To exercise. So that was something, regardless of their disabilities. They went to the pool and they got together, they socialized with their friends. They had parties that involved them, and they would dance and whatever they could do, and they went out to things like operas. You know, the older people went out to things of recreation, and it gave the feeling that they were still a part of real life, and that they weren't old elephants put out to die.
Yeah.
You know, that they still had value, they still had competencies, and they were treated with respect.
Okay.
I think your community does have a group of older people, and they do things together, and that's an important socialization advantage. There are some people, after they, for instance, lose a spouse, that want to move on. That's very difficult to move on. And I think we need to pay attention to those people and assure them that it's important. Eventually, hopefully, get them to join some type of socialization, go to church with them, or something like that. So come back into the community, because it's one of the terrible tragedies is when you lose a spouse of years.
You know, and as I listen, I realize how important it is to talk about the loneliness, the interaction, the socialization, the ability to exercise, to feel energized and valued. Mr. Denniston, as we get ready to, as the Cayman Airways pilots to say, coming in for landing, you know, the cabin crew prepared about the flight deck for landing, maybe you could take us into the last thing and speak to some of those issues, because as an active, you know, member of our community, I listen to each of you sharing, you know, all about the old people, and yet, you know, it is that respect and that usefulness that you all exhibit, and that we show that age is a number, and we as a society need to have that respect. But as Ms. Lynn shared, you know, we are probably not mindful that there is that sense, inadvertent at times, that they're being ignored, or as Ms. Alice said, that we are not cognizant that they're lonely. So from that perspective, Mr. Dennison, would you start our discussions and bring us into flight path for landing?
Well, actually, something that Ms. Lynn spoke about that touched me, because she said about men or women losing their spouse. Unfortunately, I fall into that category, because I lost my spouse after 50 years of marriage. But I certainly didn't run away. My two daughters, our two daughters, me and my wife's two daughters, they certainly don't give me an opportunity to run away. And they have made so much of me in recent times, especially, that since their mother passed away, you know, they say, "Oh, Daddy, we lost Mom, but we don't want to lose you." And, you know, they want to make sure that I'm healthy, make sure that I eat the right thing. And it's encouraging, because in retrospect, I realize that in addition to what my parents did for me, I'm doing a little more for my children. You know, and that is a cycle of life that I think that so many people miss.
Indeed.
I mean, I know people, they have 10 brothers and they're all scattered since I've been up here, I met someone who said, "Oh, my sister has a different surname and her father is different, so my mother didn't make me meet her until when I was an adult." And I mean, that never occurred to me that it would happen, but it does.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as preparing for life, one has to realize that life is what you make of it, not what somebody else makes. So you have to concentrate and do your part. And part of life is helping your fellow man. And that is what so many people miss out on. I have been fortunate that, I was brought up good parents. I had good siblings. And even at our age now, I'm the eldest of three brothers, but my sister is the eldest one. And the four of us, we talk as if we were still in school, because the love and respect for each other has always been there. Our parents instilled that on us. And unfortunately, nowadays you find children, they're so unaware of what is happening. Even my grandson, I said to him, I used to take your mom and her sister every summer for vacation. Oh, he said, well, I'm going to have to talk to Mom about that, because she's only taking me on one or two. He's only 11 years old, so what do you expect? But as far as the landing goes, if you don't have a happy flight, then you won't land properly. And if you haven't learned the rules before you start to try to land, then you're going to crash. And I have tried my best in my, I'd have to say, relatively short life compared to some people. I mean, my father died 3 years ago. He was 90 years old. And I hope that I still have some of those genes. But the older person today is a privilege. I mean, as the president of the Seafarers, I have visited so many old shut-in people. And then all of a sudden, well, me and my vice president, and all of a sudden, 2 or 3 weeks after you visit them, they pass away. It got so bad one time that my vice president said to me, he said, "Man, I'm not going nowhere with you again, because everybody you visit dies." So, but life is certainly a journey, and if you make it a rough journey, then it's going to be a rough landing.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make it, and you heard me say this over and over.
Yes, sir.
I've learned, and I try to teach as much as I can. And the thing about life too is that nowadays, I mean, you take for instance in the United States, there, people prepare to go to old people's home because they know the children are not going to be there. We in the West Indies are a little different. Although it's become now a trend that people don't care about their father, their parents, but we have to stick to that and instill on people to do that, because those parents are who brought us into the world. We didn't ask to be brought here, but they brought us here, and even if they weren't good parents, you still have to respect them, because they were the forerunners of your life.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Well, we are indeed in prayer for you and your family, and your brother in particular, as Dale shared. Mr. and Mrs. Walton, any closing thoughts?
Yes, I think one of the things that we have to look at when we're dealing with ourselves, me at 85, 83, I meant to say. 83 is basically the positions we get. Life is a process. We go through different processes during our lives. And some of us learn to deal, and the people that we're referring to primarily now are people that are old, elderly, and some in the nursing homes. And some people, even at old age, can look forward, but some look backwards. Some people will look forward, and it's many positive older people in our community who looks with a sense of accomplishment, peace, and success, and it sort of it exudes from them when you talk to them about their accomplishment and peace and success. And you got another bunch of people in our community that focuses on regret, disappointment, and despair. Now, these are the people that will have a tendency to push us away, but these are the people who need our love, our respect, encouragement, and maybe even sometimes good hug, a good braca hug on the neck and say your neck smells sweet.
Oh, thank you for reminding us of that, huh?
Yeah.
Come and let me spell your neck. But thank you, sir. Miss Lynn?
Somebody mentioned about technology. Some of us at an old age are pretty good at it. Some of us are frightened of it. I think it is, it or not, it's here. I've earned the right, all of us, to be exposed to it. Utilize it. We'll be frightened by it. Have the opportunity to learn about it. Not the older person accepts technology, put a stigma on them if they decide, no, this is not for me. The ability to use a phone or a computer, access to your family, your friends, your sister in England, friends in Israel, people all over the world, and we can see them, not only hear them as in a regular phone call, somebody's WhatsApp or other things. We can actually have a conversation and see them. Decreases feelings of isolation and loneliness. Talk to somebody. And it also, in just learning a new skill, self-esteem and self-respect. And I hope there's opportunities, and with patience, older people, patience.
Indeed, yeah. Patience, respect, and love. And as we close out the discussion, Ms. Alice May and Mr. Deal.
May I share a poem by an anonymous? It says, "To my children," right? And I'll take a little liberty with it. When I spill some food on my nice clean dress or shirt, or maybe forget to tie my shoe, please be patient and perhaps reminisce about the many hours I spent with you, when I taught you how to eat with care, plus tying laces and your numbers too, dressing yourself and combing your hair. Those were precious hours spent with you. So when I forget what I was about to say, just give me a minute or maybe two. It probably wasn't important anyway, and I would much rather listen just to you. If I tell the story one more time, and you know the ending through and through, please remember your first nursery rhyme when I rehearsed it 100 times with you. When my legs are tired and it's hard to stand, or walk the stated pace that I would like to do, please take me carefully by my hand and guide me now as I so often did for you. And that's my plea to children and grandchildren and great-grands and neighbours and the community as a whole. Let us reach out and take care of each other. In the old Caymanian days, if something happened in East End, before you turn around, everybody in West Bay knew. No, we don't know. There were no phones, but it certainly traveled very quickly. We must continue to share and care for each other, because the Bible does say, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and your neighbours as yourself. And that doesn't just mean who's living next door to my house, but anyone we meet, wherever, whatever age, we must reach out and take care of them.
In love.
Sterling,
yes, sir.
I know you're short of time, but if I could say a couple of things before, and Dale, forgive me, but I don't mean to crowd it, but
no problem.
I was thinking about all these things.
Yes, sir.
The relevance of the United Nations Day of Older Persons 2021 is digital equity for all
ages. And
there's a big company in New York called Cisco, and they saw this as a challenge, and I think last year sometime they actually paid from Cable and Wireless a Wi-Fi that is in our office at the Seafarers, and older person or anybody can just go in the parking lot and have access. So that's one way of helping. And Frank Flowers Jr. made a documentary for them using our personnel to kind of put it across. But, or I should say, and a third current issue that I think is worth thinking about is that in recent times we've experienced at the office of the Seafarers so many young people. They call, they say, "Oh, my father died, but he was a seaman. Was he ever a member? No. So how do you expect us to help?" And I think that people forget that they have to prepare for death. Death is part of life. And the younger people, the children of older people have to prepare for that. And if it means putting aside $100 a month for the next 10 years, well, so be it. But, you cannot just forget about it and depend on other people or government to take care of it, because that should not be the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm privileged to be amongst all of you people, and one aspect of technology is just what we're doing right now.
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. Walton is in Cayman Brac. I'm up in Miami, and there you are in Grand Cayman, and we're all talking as if we were all there. So more kudos to digital equity for all.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you too, sir. Thank you.
Can I share one little fantasy before I go?
Yes, sir.
One of the things I find that is very helpful to me as an 83-year-old Braca, that I find that I go back to the library in my head,
mm-hmm.
and I recall, I pull some of those positive tapes out of that library I have in my head, and I play them, and sometimes I find that they are as interesting as going to the movies. For instance, my mom would take me out on the bay and to see a rock. She was giving me the parental injunction. You see that big floating rock out there, Bobo? She said, McLaughlins go through rocks, they go around rocks, they go over rocks, but McLaughlins don't go under rocks, because once you go under the rock, you're finished. McLaughlins don't fail. Parental injunction for success. And every time, because I left here at 14 years old in the university, that I would get there, I said, I'm wondering if I'm going to make it. That tape turned on and said, McLaughlins don't fail. Now, I know McLaughlins, in reality, some McLaughlins have failed. But to her, the parental injunction was, you're not going to fail because you go through rocks, you go around rocks, over rocks. And this is the last one. I know I'm pushing time. In the evening, when I live in the Bight, and in the evenings when I go down to my place in State Bay, and I'm coming back home, and the shadows of the trees that line the road down Stake Bay Point, and it's over there. I remember my father coming off the bluff with cassava and yam and potatoes in his basket. After working all day and having about 7 miles to walk with that back to Booby Point, and my father would say, Bobo, you did a good day's work, and stay close to the trees, and the sun won't be so hot on your back. But we're going to get home, and we're going to have a good weekend of cassava, yam, potatoes, and pumpkin, and we're even carrying our firewood on our back. So hold on there, Bobo. As I know, I mean, this may sound silly, but really these are some of the things that this old 85-year-old Braca plays that sustains him when I don't have people around to sustain me.
Yes, sir.
And I would like to thank this committee for giving me the opportunity to be a representative. May God bless all.
Amen. Thank you much. Mr. Dale, I think Dale summed it up for you, sir.
Well, yes. By listening to everybody's contribution here tonight, that's a learning experience for me.
Yes, sir.
Hearing these older folks talk about their experiences and their lives and so forth, and it's a joy for me to listen to them and hear their stories. And also, based on Ms. Alice said earlier in her remarks, is that to remind the youngsters nowadays, love your parents as God has loved you. Because, they were there for you. They brought you into this world, mom and dad, and they did all they could do for you. So give them what they deserve, the love and care. Because in saying that, I heard many stories where that older folks have been neglected to some extent, and the children or the grandchildren have not been taking care of them like they should. But I'd like to say to those and appeal to those youngsters nowadays, go back home, see what your parents, your grandparents is doing, look at their welfare and so forth, and give them the love and care that they deserve, because they have given that to you over the years, you see. So I want to end with that and remind those youngsters of those things, the value of loving and caring for the older person. And may God bless them all.
Amen. Ms. Cassandra, looking forward to next week's discussion. But thank you.
Yes.
You want some final thoughts, Mom?
Yes, Sterling, thank you so much. I hope the audience has enjoyed this as much as I have. This was very informative, very inspiring. I loved it. I just want to add that the theme, digital equity for all ages, and we still continue to have our workshops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the Older Persons Active Aging Center. This week we're doing how to use your smartphone, and then for the next 2 weeks of the month we'll be doing how to use social media. So those workshops are still available. Call 949-0290 to register for them. We want older persons to be able to continue to be connected to their families, their friends, to society. So if you need that help, because we realize some people don't, but if you need that help, just call and register for those workshops. Thank you again, Sterling.
It was an honor, and I thank each of you for joining us. And as Mr. Dale shared, God's richest blessings upon each of you individually and collectively. And to our listeners, let's look at the love and the respect that we have one for another, especially our elderly. I'm going to pause now, and with great deference, when we return, we'll join our good friends from the Health Services Authority. They've been assembled patiently, so we'll be anxious for that discussion when we return. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
As with much of history, historical facts tend to be passed along via the older folks and stories. One of the fullest early accounts of the settlement of Cayman Brac was given by H.W. Rutty, J.P., in 1908, which was gathered from the oldest residents. The first settlements were made in 1833, when 3 families bearing the names Rich, Foster, and Scott from Grand Cayman went to the Brac. Although others came from Grand Cayman and Jamaica, the present population in 1908 was composed of descendants of those 3 first families. Of the traditional founding families, the Fosters and Ryans have the fullest genealogical and oral records.
Information from this historical vignette was sourced from Founded Upon the Seas, A History of the Cayman Islands and Their People by Michael Creighton and the New History Committee.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
You can now register to receive a securely verified digital copy of your COVID-19 vaccination status with QR code through the My HSA patient portal. Sign up is available at all HSA locations and at various sites throughout the community. To register, all you need is your photo ID showing date of birth and a valid email address. Visit hsa.ky and click My HSA Patient Portal for the sign-up schedule and more information.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The 8:10 a.m. weather report, Monday through Friday, is proudly sponsored by Pan American International Insurance Corporation. Pan American International Insurance Corporation, meeting the life, accident, and health insurance needs of individuals and businesses to ensure financial security and peace of mind. For more information, call 949-8304 or visit www.palig.com. That's PALIG.com.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Are you interested in learning more about providing great service during COVID-19? The Cayman Islands Department of Tourism invites you to sign up for a free training course, Aquila Service Excellence COVID-19 Edition. This free training will provide guidance on how to interact with customers while adhering to COVID-19 protocols. Sessions will be held every Wednesday in October. For more information and to register, head to aquila.ourcayman.ky. That's aquila.ourcayman.ky. Deadline to register is the Monday before each session.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a non-for-profit member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. Chamber Pension has an all-in expense ratio of 0.72% over 16,000 members, $430 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s. And today, we are still strong, secure, and are here for employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or request further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. for medical lab services in Cayman. MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And I'm always joyful, hopefully receptive, respectful, and responsive to the good things before us as we live, love, and laugh. And each day we learn so much more. The last discussion, I think, should energize us as we become enthusiastic of the importance of socializing and showing reverence to our elderly. But I'm honored that our health services have always been so amenable to encouraging us to appreciate what's before us. Let's get a chance to talk about Mental Health Week. Dr. Arlene McGill, Mr. Ken, thank you for coming on board, and Ms. Sylvia as well.
For having me.
Dr. McGill, maybe you first, because I think over the years I've gradually gotten to the space where I think I'm going to be more comfortable having you as a more regular fixture within the studio. How about that? As we enter that next phase, we'll see. But good afternoon to you. Always a pleasure to see you and to chat with you, and to be reminded of how important it is for us to draw alongside one another. Mm-hmm. Youthfulness always exudes from this. For us though, maybe we start when we're looking at, not just dedicating a week to mental health, but the importance of it, because I think some of the times we don't even appreciate the words that we use, not only to one another, but even in our own sort of minds. A good friend reminds me of that script that we should have in our heads to empower, engage, but also to encourage ourselves to be as positive in our outlook. So, Dr. McGill?
Okay. I wanted to start off today with just looking at mental health, because I was just reflecting on the fact that mental health is life. If you have a heart, nobody sees it unless something goes wrong. Same thing with your liver, your kidneys. They see your skin, they see your face, but they also see your mind. Once you open your mouth, once you move, once you get an expression on your face, it speaks to your mental health. And being able to see that is something, therefore, important, and recognize that taking care of your mental health ought to be as important as putting on the makeup, putting on the clothes, and kind of getting out there. Because your mental health does show, and it's not something that you can pretend for a while, but you won't be able to hold it up. Yet we still have just about 50 to 60% of persons in the Western world having access and getting good mental care.
Wow.
So today, I want to remind us that the theme for this year is mental health for all. Let's make it a reality. That's the WHO theme. And today I wanted to talk about Cayman, because I think Cayman has a lot of things to be proud about, and things that are going to continue coming on stream that will continue to make us proud.
Mr. Again, we've had a discussion. I remember the first time we talked about mental health many years ago. I reflect on our month this year with Dr. Alexander Borden. Mental health matters, and as Dr. McGill referenced, we can see the scrape on the skin or the open wound. We can see the countenance in people, their body language in particular, but that presence of mind sometimes. Many of us mask it or think that we do, but to that, inward perspective.
If I happen to address that, is this, if we do the parallel, if someone had to have physiotherapy after having an ankle injury, there's a period of healing and they go through a rehab kind of process. Very often in mental health, we kind of overlook that. We don't see the healing process taking place because a lot of it is unknown. Is the dis-ease of the brain. And it takes a lot of time for that to occur.
Yeah. We see the impact of the brain, and I wonder sometimes, Dr. McGill's point, the heart, the emotional cost and consequence of things, not just that thing that happens that evokes loss because of something now that's no longer there, but the impact, whether it's, as a psychiatrist, whether that chemical imbalance there may be, the untrained, uninitiated, as it were, to the actual impact of life on one. Dr. McGill.
Yeah, and I think we usually narrow it down to mental health, narrow it down to just being floridly ill, and we shouldn't. The reality is that we have different levels of health in terms of mentally, and at different times we are operating at higher levels, and other times we are operating at lower levels. And everybody goes through that. So when we think about it, we need to recognize that this is an us thing. It's not those people, them. It's us. It's all of us. So whether it's somebody who is hiding the fact that they're not doing well, or somebody who is really acting out, all of that depends on personality. It depends on what the person feels as acceptable in their context. And I'm hoping that we're moving more and more towards being acceptable to say that I'm not holding it together.
That's it. That is the sign of weakness, but in fact strength. When we come back from the break, Miss Sylvia, pick up on what Mr. Ken was saying. We can see the physiotherapy. We can see the administration of first aid, whether it's the little scrape or whether it's more significant. And when we come back, is there mental health first aid? Is there things, we know the psychiatrists and the psychologists, we know the physiotherapists, the occupational therapists, we know all the other things, but sometimes we don't maybe appreciate the importance of, just like what Mr. Ken said, that therapy, that physio, that rehab, that wellness, that healing. Let's chat with you, and let's look at some of the services that are on the books, Dr. McGill. All right. Hey, listen, health and education are the pillars in a society, so say I. But if those disagree, well, we'll take a task. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman. We've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. Our coverage continues of the search for a missing man in the waters in North Sound. Radio Cayman's Shanda Gallego has more with the Cayman Islands Coast Guard.
At the moment, and since last night, the currents have been pulling out towards the main channel. Last night, the speed of the current was around 0.7 of a knot. Today, it's about 0.5.
Coast Guard B.
That's Cayman Islands Coast Guard Commander Robert Scotland earlier today, updating Radio Cayman about the search for a man who apparently fell off a party boat with more than 40 people on board. The Coast Guard, police, fire, and others searched for hours last night and again through the day starting at 6 this morning. Mr. Scotland says the search has primarily focused on the area between Starfish Point and Governor's Sound. At one point today, some 15 private vessels joined in what's called a line search, a methodical process similar to the one you would see on land.
You start off at one point and you travel, you space the vessels out. And again, they're spaced out between 50 and 75 feet between each vessel. And they sweep from a east to west direction. When they hit the most western point, they go up a certain distance and then they sweep from west to east. And then that pattern just continues to replicate until they get towards the reef.
That's Coast Guard Commander Robert Scotland. The search and rescue operation remains ongoing and is being coordinated on Marine VHF Channel 24. Vessels wishing to assist should contact the Coast Guard Operations and Rescue Coordination Center on either VHF 24 or at 649-6722. That number again is 649-6722. For Radio Cayman News, I'm Shanda Gallego.
Thank you, Shanda. We will continue our coverage throughout the day and on Radio Cayman News at 6. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And in our continued partnership with the Health Services Authority, we're always honored to be able to, through them, remind our populace of the wonderful services, the competence, the commitment that we have within this small community. And maybe as we think of possible careers, that we look at the health services. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't even know, from the radiographers to those who tend to the machines, to the psychiatrists, to the occupational therapists, and even the guys in the accounts. Sorry, they're important too for health services. But we have Mr. Ken Figueroa together with Dr. Arlene McGill and Ms. Sylvia Wilkes. We wanted to start this segment with you because I think Mr. Ken was referencing the notion of the obvious, very accessible, and importance as well of getting the physio, getting the mental rehab, getting all of these things. But is there such a thing as mental health first aid?
Right, there is such a thing as mental health first aid. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak about this subject matter. I think this is probably the first time I'm speaking about it in this forum. But what's real, and I want to first piggyback on what Dr. McGill was saying, in that mental health issues are common, are real. It's among us. If we were to be true to ourselves, we'd be true to the fact that there are times when we experience different difficulties. And it's very important for us to understand, realize that life happens. You have death in the family. You might be studying and it might be overwhelming, and various things. Right, and so persons may be experiencing depression, anxiety. And what became real to me is this past weekend when we were at the conference, the healthcare conference, and I was having a conversation with some professionals, and they were talking about their experience with being in quarantine. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, it became so much more real to me. These are professionals. One I think is a deputy chief officer. Right? Won't call her name obviously on here, right? But I'm like, in the conversation, I'm like, and they were like, yeah, we were like, we were ready to pull our hair out. You know, we were like really struggling. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, seriously? And then I'm like, okay, mental health first aid then, because I'm new to it as an instructor. Thanks to HSA and all those who were a part of myself and Hilton Grace doing the training this year. Mental health first aid is similar to the first aid that you go and do at the Red Cross, right? Is first responder. You're the first on the scene. You're the one that's identifying the problem before the professionals get to deal with it. And so it's very important for the community to be exposed to this type of training, because you're the family member that gets to experience and see what's happening before they may even get to a doctor to get a proper diagnosis. So it's not for you to be in a place where you're going to be able to diagnose people, but you'll be able to see certain symptoms of specific crises that a person may be going through, and then offer the type of support that will help the person minimize going into a deeper crisis. And so it's very important for us to see it a similar way to the physical first aid.
And I'm glad that you referenced that earlier, because I think this last, I say last year was a long century, but these last 2 years, that impact that is having on our mental well-being, from the young child that we always know to be resilient, to that seasoned professional, whether medical, financial, or other, that they're now, and I don't say this because it was my term, nor do I say it because I'm trying to be facetious, but I've heard professionals refer to it, and so I repeat it because I think it's appropriate. They're on the house arrest. They're in this space for that defined period with significant consequences as to whether they can leave or not. And I don't think, Dr. McGill, we should take that lightly, because these are impacting people's lives in a very material way. We are social beings, we're created to fellowship. With that, Mr. Ken, let me then ask, we can see programs for people to come and engage. We look at daycare, for elderly as well as for our young people. We look at facilities where you come in for a bit and enjoy yourself. But we also see that there's a growing stigma, despite the many efforts to take away from people that there's no need, there's no weakness in seeking some sort of counseling assistance. But Dr. McGill referenced, in the Western world, 50-60% of the people still, don't look at it. So in the Cayman context, if I were,
the stigma is a major challenge for most people. A lot of people do not seek help because of the repercussions of seeking help, even within the family. Right, so taking histories from families it's pretty traumatic for them, because it brings up strong feelings that make them even more vulnerable, because they have to be vulnerable. When they share, they have to share to maybe 3-4 professionals and having to give up. All right, and then you contrast to the fact that in everyday language, people refer to as being crazy, being mad. All right,
even depressed sometimes is a word that we use.
All right, and sometimes using those terms places the clients that we work at a disadvantage. My focus is working with clients who are vulnerable. So I work in the mental day center, and we focus on occupation and the wide, broad section of occupation. So the occupational history is important. Is this person managing their self-care? Is this person preparing to go back to work? So that kind of wide cross-section that we work with.
I can, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can imagine. Something that Ms. Sylvia shared. And again, just look at it from the small community that is the Cayman Islands. We should probably know everybody. We say we do. We should probably have an understanding, appreciation, but we probably don't. And let's say, to Ms. Sylvia's point, a family member has something has occurred, and we summon the authorities. Let's say it's the police, for instance, because that's what we think, without having the need now for the complementary services. And they come out and they're going to try to make this that setting as safe as possible for everybody else. But is their response, the appropriate thing at a time, given the circumstance? But without the appreciation, the training, the collaboration, we are probably inadvertently, Dr. McGill, making something much worse than what the intent was, all because of the lack of sensitivity to what is transpiring. So, Dr. McGill.
You brought up something very important, and I am so glad that we have made strides in that direction. So if somebody is suicidal, it does not go on the books as a criminal event, and in fact the persons from the Royal Cayman police force who intervene are the community officers. And I have to really laud the community officers because they get to know people and they get to know their vulnerabilities as well. And they're generally quite polite and they are compassionate. And that helps. It's important for persons who have problems at a time when they're vulnerable to not feel afraid. So we have made some strides in that direction. What I wanted to mention based on what Mr. Ken said is that we have this notion that because somebody has a mental illness at this point, they are always going to be ill. And that is such a fallacy. Somebody can fall into a mental illness and then they improve and they recover very, very well. And they never become ill again because they have learned what to look out for. They've learned how to get help. And these are things that are important. So when Mr. Ken speaks about working with the vulnerable, he's working with persons in that space between the illness and the recovery. And that's the goal. Our goal is to have persons functional, optimally functional, and integrated into the community. So I say it's a goal because, of course, we, as has been mentioned, we do have challenges. And one of the challenges is the mindset, the old mindset, which needs to be overcome.
So one of the things that are important is that anybody that had any services to do with mental health can come to the day hospital uninvited. We may not immediately respond to them, but we create a safe space for them to access the services.
With that, if I may ask you, because sometimes we see going to specialists, we need the referral. So that's when you said, uninvited, no appointment, just come if you feel it. So for that person, maybe even listening now, who may be feeling something, and we ourselves should probably know our bodies best. We should know how we're feeling. Maybe, what's the word? I think comes to mind easier. A sense of malaise, even. We know that this is not how we feel normally for whatever reason. We may ignore it. We may think we can get through it, but should we not access the services that are available? So just come over.
Yes, just drop in. And more particularly, we kind of changing location. We're going into a larger space, away from a hospital setting generally. So I think we should be a little more accommodating to people who are apprehensive of using a hospital kind of setting.
Yeah. I mean, that potential stigma that we may attach to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Hopefully my role and those of other persons who become mental health first aiders would put Mr. Ken out of business. Like people wouldn't have to access the service because there's so many people giving support in the community. I'm hoping, but
And I will like that to happen.
I figured he would say that,
Well,
because one of the things is it's an actual action plan, right? That a mental health first aider go through after accessing and approaching the situation. We take people through being able to listen non-judgmentally, so that you're able to give the appropriate information and support that a person may eventually need. So they're armed with information that they can, if persons do need additional support, they can receive it. So it's not just for the individual that they would engage with, but for themselves as well. Right. So it's very important, for the community to have access to that.
All right, so yes, ma'am.
Mental health first aid is at the base of this pyramid then. And it's so the pyramid, the broadest part of it is the base. That's the community level sensitivity and education and knowledge base. And the desire we have is to have a mentally educated populace in the Cayman Islands, so that if something is not going quite right with somebody, we're not pulling away. We're moving in and saying, can I help you? Is there something I could do to make life easier? So that that person knows that there is support, there is care, whatever their age.
Well, when we come back from the break, let's talk about that. And maybe if it was okay, Mr. Ken puts it on the table, maybe we can talk about some of the services to come. And hopefully as people appreciate the importance of our mental health and wellness, that it is all of us every time being impacted by it. So please, stay tuned for Talk Today.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
20 years.
Remember when Crew Road had no median and Linford Pearson was only 2 lanes?
We do.
When Dirty Reeds was down the street?
We do.
We have been there for the falls, the growth, and the rise. When your body and mind needed to change, Powerhouse Gym has been here. We've skated with you. Your first date, your daughter's first time on skates, your son's first strike. From football to squash, to karate and hockey, to bowling and concerts, and everything in between.
For 20 years,
so much has changed, some for the good and some not so much. Through it all, King Sports Center has been here for you, for Cayman.
King Sports Center, celebrating 20 years as Cayman's home for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean, and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks, too, for joining us. And thanks for the opportunity to celebrate Mental Health Week. Dr. Arlene Miguel Miskin Figueroa together with Sylvia Wilkes. I'm inclined to say that increasingly in our community now we're starting to appreciate that the discussion about certain things from cancers and other ailments to mental health and wellness are becoming much, much more prominent and prevalent, and as a society we're being positioned to appreciate that our people are poised to access the professional services that are available without the amount of stigma that once existed. But I keep referencing that because I think we don't appreciate it. Mr. Ken, your earlier comment that we're moving away from a less clinical setting so that it seems, people are just going somewhere without that label that we may assign either to ourselves or we may fear has been assigned.
I recall maybe about 15 years ago when we first went back to kind of boost the World Mental Health Day. We sat at Hero Square. It was changed since then. And there was about 5 of us there and nothing happened. And I think if you have to gauge that now, there's more discussion. People are more comfortable talking.
Right.
So there has been positive changes since.
I remember the first time having you guys on the show to discuss it, how we all had a bit of trepidation. What about this and that? But Dr. McGill, sorry, Ms. Sylvia.
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce what Mr. Ken was just saying in terms of recent. A lot of the conversation I'm having with young people, a lot of that is coming out more so. Whereas before they wouldn't say anything about being suicidal, or they may not say I feel depressed, and so the conversation is coming up more. They're speaking more about it. So it's very real, and it's for us to really pay attention to what is being said and make sure that we're armed and ready to be able to respond to what is being said. So it's not just about listening. So when a young person comes to you and say, I feel depressed, how are you going to respond? Do you know what the appropriate thing to say to that young person? Yeah, I feel suicidal. I feel like I would, take my life. Okay, but what then? No, because some people are like, why you think that way? Why, and the way they respond actually pushes the person to follow through with what they intended to follow through in the first place. Whereas, as a first responder, if they knew exactly what to say and then provide the appropriate response, then it would minimize that happening.
Right. Dr. McGill, many times I think the training that comes from sort of the pursuit of a certain passion or a professional calling, but I think too, what about the community in relation to the life skills that we sort of implore? Maybe everybody should understand how to change the tire. Maybe we should appreciate what's involved with something in a bathroom, the plumbing isn't working. But even as Ms. Sylvia referenced, talking to people, we are probably inflammatory and don't even realize it. We're probably insensitive and don't appreciate it. We should, Dr. McGill.
So, and that's one of the great things about mental health first aid. It really does teach you how to talk to somebody else, not just somebody who is in a crisis. The fact is that if people apply the principles, they'll find that their conversations are better at home, at work, and everywhere else. And that's the beauty of that program. And the other thing that we haven't really said about that program is that it spans all age groups. And so we do have the potential to impact the way our youth speak to each other, and therefore how they also understand what they're hearing from the other person, and that is important too. These are skills, the communication skills. Those are skills we have got to learn if we're going to develop a gentler society that is more understanding of each other.
More love encompassing all, and
the empathy.
And as you shared, I want to ask, how to access that program for us. I'm thinking of, we're told to be an active listener requires a lot of effort. It is taxing. Or we're told as parents to be actively engaged in the lives of our children. How do you speak so your children will listen? How do you get to understand where they are? But many times our colleagues, our siblings, even our peers as teenagers, adolescents, we look at whether it's alcohol or some other drug, the peer-to-peer education. But the mental health and wellness, how do we recognize and be respectful, of our football teammate because he's seeing something or she is this? So those programs, Dr. McGill, the training, the wellness, open to all, and how do we know about when it's happening, and how do we be a part of it?
So Ms. Sylvia might have to answer that, but of course, so far what persons have done in the past, because we have had this for the last 5 years until Mr. Ricardo Henry left the island. Generally, they send an email to HSA, and we take it from there. We pass it on to Mr. Grace or to Ms. Sylvia, and then the dialogue starts. we also are looking at actually providing community training through hopefully private-public partnerships. Because, like I said, mental health is life. If somebody's not gonna desperately break your car window or break into your office or whatever, simply because they've stopped caring, and so they really don't care what happens to them. If you can help that person to find self-worth and find help and wholeness, then that's a lot of money
Quality life,
saved.
indeed. So that, as you respond, Mr. Vitt, our mental health first aid training in our community, we look at the Red Cross providing the CPR. We look at other things, like I said, with the CERT program in particular, upskilling many and building a stronger community. When will this training will be available, given even the circumstances? Because all of us should be equipped.
Right. As I said, it became much more real to me, after, since the conference.
Right.
Hearing from other person, I would not have heard from, especially with their experience with quarantine. Myself and Hilton Grace are the instructors right now. I'm more flexible than he is. I'm, a person just need to contact me and I could, schedule doing it. What it is it's an e-study. It's like it's done online. So it can be done in person as well, but we prefer to do it online mostly now because considering the situation.
Another problem, but anyway.
Right. So there is a self-study aspect that persons do first. We do a webinar following that to basically go over what they studied on their own. And then we give them access to further another self-study. And then we do another webinar as well to bring it all together. It's very comprehensive, but it takes persons through different crises and what they can do in response to those different crises. So they're able to see what a person is experiencing and then be able to identify this is anxiety and this is what I can do to help this person as they go through that. So it's a matter of contacting myself and HSA as well, because we have been a lot of the information that we've been receiving has been through HSA. So should I give my number?
Well, if you want, I was going to ask you what it costs and how long it takes. So go ahead, give your number.
All right, so it's 917-3885. So right now it's $65 per person. The value of it is actually $230. But Hilton and myself agreed to do it at $65 per person, minus the $25 that they have to pay for the self-study. Because again, we want to make it accessible to individuals. And I would actually implore business people, employers, to make sure that they have their, because they're experiencing different difficulties as well with their employees based on the hybrid workplace that they now have and different issues that they have with just that aspect of the change.
And how long would it take normally for someone interested, if they wanted to do, given it's going to be done electronically for the most part, but how long?
Right, so like the self-study would take at least about a week. So the webinar is done right after that. So within a span of 2 weeks, it can be done.
Okay, perfect. Just again.
Yeah, I want to link with what Dr. McGill mentioned in terms of the pyramid and the community. And I want to acknowledge a number of proactive organizations in the community. Alex Panto, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Men, Boys to Men. These are proactive kinds of bodies that are important in terms of mental health in the youth. And I think we need to acknowledge and support it. So that we don't have to deal with some other chronic mental illness 20 years down the road.
And that mentoring, that fellowship, that sense of nurturing in a safe, caring space.
And then all the Christian churches who have, churches generally, you have all the Sunday schools and all the things where they keep the young people in touch. And the educational systems, what they do for their students. All these are things that we as a community need to support to make that pyramid strong. So that we don't have to deal with major crisis.
But is it then, Dr. Hill, if you want to.
No, go ahead, because I just wanted to talk about some of the exciting stuff.
No, go ahead, man. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
All right, so we've been talking a lot about the base of the pyramid, and Mr. Ken's function is a bit higher up the pyramid, and it gets narrower because there are less persons who can impact others as you go up. So we do have our inpatient service. We do have our psychiatrists. I want to say that we now have a neuropsychiatrist, and somebody's going to wonder, well, what does this person do? She loves to work with children, so children with neurodevelopmental challenges, some of them are those you would say are neurodiverse. She works with those, but not only those. We have an increasing number of persons who have been in motor vehicle accidents who afterwards the brain doesn't function as well as it did before. And for a person in that position, they might find it hard to go back to their job. They might find it hard to cope with stressors. She interfaces with persons with traumatic brain injury, with Parkinson's disease, and with complicated dementia. And this, like I said, this is us, people with difficult migraine and seizures that have affected their mental functioning. So we do have that. We have a hypnotherapist who is another psychiatrist who brings another dimension to therapy, and that's for persons who have difficulty with expressing themselves, expressing different traumas, and having compulsions and things like that, and not understanding how to get at it. So we're expanding. You've met Samantha, our ABA therapist, and we are adding additional psychologists with particular skill sets. But exciting stuff for next year, an adolescent emergency hub, a space for our teens, our tweens and our teens, a space where they can access help in an atmosphere where they don't feel it is an emergency room and sit in a waiting room, a space where somebody talks to them who looks like them and approaches them in the language that they are used to, and getting them the help that they need professionally without them feeling uncomfortable. Or long-term rehabilitation facility, which is for the most vulnerable in our society who will need long-term rehabilitation. So there are things that are happening, and we're adding staff to help our patients access things like their financial needs, those kinds of things, making sure that they can get their medication. So we're adding social workers as well. So I want to say that we're moving on, and the goal is to get to this comprehensive service where everybody has a point of access and can actually get the help that they want, if they want it.
May I make a comment, please? Based on what Dr. McGill was saying, especially as relates to the brain. I was on a forum recently, and it was mainly about business, right? But they try to cover as much different things as possible. And the speaker spoke about faith-based responses versus fear-based responses or decisions, and spoke about how the way in which you engage with a person, or the things that you say to an individual, may either increase their fear or their faith. And even the way in which we approach things as well is either from a place of fear or a place of faith. And a simple strategy for people generally in the community, based on what we're experiencing right now, when you get a message that is negative. First thing you need to ask, am I increasing this person's faith or am I increasing their fear? You know, and chances are it may be their fear that you'll increase. Don't pass it on. Don't send it, especially the persons who you know are vulnerable, and if they see certain things, their response is not going to be the best.
Make them more fearful. Huh?
Exactly. So if it's not increasing faith, don't send it.
Yeah. Well, maybe we get to a space where we all recognize the truth. You know, it's not only liberating, but it's certainly under threat. Once again, always a pleasure, and as you share, you know, as Dr. McGill reminded us, we're moving on to greater things as they're coming up. Final thoughts from you, sir?
Please access services if you need the help. We are here to help.
Yes. Our day hospital program is located at the old Light of the World compound. And if you need help, walk in. If you're uncomfortable with going on the hospital compound, we have several numbers. I had an interesting experience this morning because there was somebody in crisis and a mental crisis, and the flu hotline got the call. Fortunately, the person who took the call is very well connected to me, and so they contacted me, and so we could get things moving, and I could make sure that the relevant persons have all our numbers, 244-2650, or we have WhatsApp, 324-3223. And that's separate from the mental health helpline, which is 534-6463. But don't forget that there is a kids helpline, 649-5437, and a crisis hotline as well, 534-2422. And the older person's support line, I cannot forget that, because it's too often that our older persons get isolated and forgotten. And that's 534-2222. So, telephone access.
We all have our phones with us, you know. And I'm mindful of that, you know, as we seemingly try to connect our societies, we can see increasingly the growing division, and so much, even from the discussion leads to discord. But hopefully through that dialogue, we can see the appreciation of our mental health and wellness and the services that, you know, our taxpayers are contributing to the expansion. Hopefully as a society, we will avail ourselves of it and not, you know, have that stigma as they can, because it is our health that is important.
May I give my final words?
You know I was going to leave you. Go right ahead.
No, I just want to encourage persons as a next step, you know, having listened to this conversation, call Miss Sylvia at 917-3885 if you really want to do the mental health first aid training.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad that we are appreciative of, you know, the need to look after our entire health. And in closing, I was going to ask you, Ms. Sylvia, but you did, to remind us, you know, how important it is to look at that space, and irrespective of our profession or our calling or occupation or position.
Yeah.
No health without good mental health.
No.
There's no health without mental health. Mental health, you know, for all. Let's make it a reality, right, Doctor?
Thank you for having us.
It was a pleasure.
Yes.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And we invite you to come back tomorrow. Join me, start for the record in the morning. Be part of the Talk Today program right after the midday news and midday meditation. You know, sometimes if we're cognizant, the fellow might find more fellowship on the bar stool than he does in the church pew. Well, that's on us if that happens. So let's be loving, kind, and considerate one to another. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.